this week come to Central City, Colorado, once dubbed the richest square mile on Earth. At one time, it was home to over 10,000 people. Now it's only home to 600 and a bunch of casinos. Come on a Radically Colorado journey with us as we explore Central City. Explore Central City with us as we walk from the history into the present moment. We're going to be bringing some of these Central City historic images to life, bringing them into color, bringing them into animation to truly transport you to Central City in the 1800s. I am here in the middle of it, Central City, Colorado. This is one of the most fun towns to talk history on because it's been through so many evolutions and so many chapters, but I'm standing in what would have been, at one time, what was dubbed the richest square mile on Earth, and that's because so much money was happening right here. Central City was founded in 1859, just like Idaho Springs, which we did a video on last week. All of these were founded at the Pikes Peak Gold Rush. And in this town, it was John Gregory, not a George this time, Mr. John Gregory coming in and finding the Gregory Lode, a big old stockpile of gold. So like Idaho Springs, this was also a gold mining town, so the economy survived well into the 1930s. And as we're walking around here, you can really see all of these beautiful buildings that are in Central City. You can see how this was the richest square mile. Just look around. Ornate 3, 4-story buildings here, looking at the Teller House. Within 2 months, this town turns from a mining camp into a city. Within 2 months, 2,000 people are now living in Central City, flocking from every section of the United States in hopes of vast wealth. And a lot of people did make a vast fortune here. Many of them through selling stuff to the miners, through mine claims, and then through economic operations that supported mining. Central City, like a lot of Colorado towns in the 1860s, is really trying to find its identity. And that's because so many of these Colorado towns are boom and bust towns, forming overnight, growing into thousands of people, and then as soon as the mine dissipates, disappearing almost overnight. In the name of this kind of boom and bust cycle, a lot of these towns try to establish themselves as a permanent economic staple. And that was the goal of Central City, which was one of the gold mining hubs of Colorado at this time. And what makes a city a staple is a good hotel. Looking at the Teller House here, which was at one time the fanciest hotel west of Denver in all of the mountains. And maybe it still would be today if it still operated as a hotel, because it's got a lot more charm than some of those new places in Vail, in my opinion. Nothing makes a city more than a grand hotel. I mean, think about it. Someplace that's looking for investors needs a place for them to stay, for them to feel welcome, for them to not feel like they're going to be murdered. The Teller House was that place in Central City. Founded by Henry Teller, a businessman here in Colorado, and Colorado's first senator. You see his name absolutely everywhere in Colorado, and he built this hotel. It was built in under a year. Laborers were working day and night to open this hotel. Staff was hired from the East Coast to bring some civility to the rough and tumble town of Central City, and the hotel was opened right next to the Central City Opera House. I mean, this was the place to stay, and everybody who was somebody stayed here. Like President Ulysses Grant, when he visited Colorado, stayed here. This was at a time when they were debating the validity of silver backing the United States dollar, so from the Caribou mines in Netherlands, a bunch of silver was brought in, $20,000 worth at the time, and laid down for President Grant as an entrance into the hotel. He ignored it, however, and went into the side entrance because he didn't want to show favor or disregard to silver. Another great Teller House story is the face on the barroom floor, which was a popular poem, apparently, in the late 1800s. And that poem was composed by Hugh Antoine Darcy, who was dead when this was painted. However, there was a disgruntled painter in Central City who was commissioned by the Teller Hotel for a lot of different works, and he got a little drunk one night, decided to go into the ballroom and paint a face on the barroom floor. And that face, I guess, was his wife, but the hotel spun it. They didn't give credit to Davis. They said the poet, who is already dead, painted it to try to draw people into Central City. The record was set right, like 10 years later in the 40s, when Davis did an interview and admitted to painting the photo. For years, the Central City Opera House was the place to be. This is the other thing that added to civilization and culture. The Central City Opera House was opened as one of the oldest opera houses in the country, like the fourth oldest opera association. The town people came together in the 1860s and 70s and raised money for this place. They built it over the creek, so there's a natural air conditioning that's going through this building, but it was very cold in the winter because the creek drops the temperature like 15 degrees. There's a lot of famous people who were here. One of those famous people was the Booth brother who didn't shoot Abraham Lincoln, performed here. Buffalo Bill performed here, and apparently the play was so bad that he decided he was going to reenact Western culture in a live setting and not do a scripted play anymore. Central City literally got him to open up the Buffalo Bill show that we know him for. I'm standing up here next to Coeur d'Alene Mine, which is a mine right above Central City. I mean, like, right above it. I've seen it, shown it in some other clips. Here's the city down here. And this was one of the 1880s gold mines that stayed active until the 40s. So you see that the mining economy, because it was gold, never really died here like the silver towns until we get into the Depression and World War II, and then these mines go defunct. Like a lot of Colorado towns, this one sprung up because of mining, this overnight wealth that could make or break towns in Colorado is ultimately what built Central City. But unlike some Colorado towns like Leadville, Silverton, etc., the economy was based on gold and hard rock, which remained valuable in the United States until the late 30s and early 40s when gold prices took a big dip. And that's when you see this area starts to stagnate and turns in another direction. Before that, though, there were something like 1,000 to 1,500 mines in this area. Some of the most gold in the United States was extracted from the mines in this area, and it produced a heavy economy, an economy that brought 10,000 people and had three huge cities, Central City, Blackhawk, and ghost town Nevadaville. With a mining economy comes a ton of ancillary businesses that are there to serve the mining economy. And Central City had a lot of these ancillary businesses. From the simple things, like the grocery store that you would need to buy your grocery stores, or the clothing store that you would need, or a supply store that you would need to prospect. A lot of times, the people that owned these stores are the ones that became the wealthiest, the ones that got the most money. Because if you think about it, their success wasn't really based on prospecting. It was on prospectors who were a guarantee. So Central City forms a lot of businesses, including a giant brewery that was once at the top of the hill here. Right, so this is where the train would have come in to Central City. The Colorado Central, like I said, it would have, at the junction where we came up, there would have been a junction there, and you would have the option to go to Central City Blackhawk Station, right here, or to go on to Idaho Springs, which we did a video on last week. This station actually was a tourist train in the 80s. The old train depot got buried by mine trailings, actually, right behind me, but it was roughly in this location, and then this narrow gauge would have been the tourist train, but also where the train would have come, the Colorado Central and the Colorado Southern would have come as well. This city had 10,000 people in it. That's hard to imagine today with a population of around 600 people in it. It's a very different economy here than it was during the gold economy, when you could come here and you could make a fortune overnight, like John Gregory, who didn't found the town, but definitely he's the reason the 10,000 people came to the town. In the 1860s, the city was largely built of wood construction, and like a lot of Colorado cities, it burnt to the ground and was rebuilt. And when Central City was rebuilt, it was rebuilt with stone to stand the test of time. Well, you know, in the 1890s to 1930s, this place is really booming. And then we all know what happened in the 1930s. The Depression comes in, wipes this place out. We're not so concerned about mining things like gold, and the economy's not doing so well, so these mines shut down. As the 30s and 40s came around, the city started to die, and with that, unfortunately, the Central City Opera House. However, a resurgence happens, and the Central City Opera House now holds a festival every single summer in Central City. So if you want to experience the late 1800s, that is the place to go. So the economy transitions after we exit World War II. I did another video on the small domes. Please watch that one. But that was Denver's mafia. So a lot of people say this town became a gambling town in the 90s whenever Colorado allowed small betting at that time. And now you can just come in here and wager whatever you want, is my understanding, due to some new legislation. But the small domes before that came in here and they operated gambling rings illegally, paid off the police. So this has been kind of an underground, rough and tumble, Wild West town since the very beginning, through the 1890s to 1930s. Then it transforms into a mob town. And in the 90s, it really transforms again, because that's when legal gambling takes hold. Central City and Blackhawk were two of the first places to allow legal gambling. The problem for beautiful, historic, charming, more intact, like, this is an amazing place, you would think it would attract all the tourists, is they had to drive through Blackhawk to get here. The big companies got hip to this. They said, oh my gosh, they gotta go through Blackhawk to get to Central City, because Central City had the first casinos, but then Ameristar and Monarch opened behemoth monsters, you know, like more like Vegas style resorts. So charming, beautiful little Central City didn't take off the way it should. A lot of the original casinos failed when these big ones opened. But here in Central City, there are 6 24-hour casinos. So it's still really happening here. Blackhawk's just right over there. And there's a very controversial Rick's Cabaret, which has a lot of signs coming into town. The town doesn't like it. Rick, however, is staying open here in the middle of town. Despite the town not liking it. Comment if you're from here and what you think of it, because I'm kind of interested. I've heard both sides of the story, like good for the economy. The other side, obviously, is what it brings, but we are in a casino town. Flip it over here. Century Casino, kind of right there. Bonanza Casino right here. By the way, I'm here at like 9:20 a.m. If you're thinking, wow, it looks dead. A lot of empty buildings here though, folks. So like the entrepreneur in me, like, wow, if we could open up a lot of cool stuff here and bring in more people from, you know, antiquated Blackhawk. 'Cause look at this. This is an amazing city. And then right here is Rick's. And then we got the Easy Street Casino. And you see, the Historic Society has done such a great job here preserving at least kind of the false fronts from the 1890s. Like Rick's here, this building was one of those failed casinos. And it has new infrastructure behind it. Then it's got this like 1890s false front still. Gonna wrap around here. Get a good view on it. Cool, huh? Isn't this the coolest place ever? Like, you're legit. Here, I wanted to get this, the Sower McShane Mercantile Company here. Such a cool building. There was quite a few notable residents in this town. While I'm standing here on the Central Railroad here, this narrow gauge, reminds me of one, George Pullman, who invented the Pullman sleeper car, but he lived in Idaho Springs for 3 years before he invented that sleeper car. So that way, he could make the beginning of his fortune, which allowed him to progress into these new business enterprises. Here, he had a stake in a mill, in a mine, and he had a storefront. Center of the Silver Dynasty was the Tabor family, which they weren't so rooted here, but there was Baby Doe Tabor, as she was called, Tabor's young wife, which I guess was scandalous back then. Now we don't care as much, I guess, because billionaires are marrying young wives all the time. That's another story. Anyways, so Baby Doe lived here with her first husband in Idaho Springs before the scandalous marriage to Tabor. And he, of course, was a silver magnate in Leadville. We'll do a video on that too, so make sure to subscribe. Kind of a cool view here. What the trains would have gone over as we're going through. Old railroad ties. Can you imagine rolling down the train over Central City? And you haven't really seen anything but mountains since Denver, maybe since Golden. Then you come here. Wow. And you see this. As you're coming above the train. Absolutely incredible. that this train track followed this and literally hugged the side of the mountain here. So here's my challenge to everybody. This city's amazing, you see that. But behind me, all this is vacant. And that's all vacant because there's not enough business here and there's too much business elsewhere. So if you wanna, I'm not saying don't support Blackhawk, we love it there too. The next time you come, support Central City a little bit because we need these places to have businesses so that way we can preserve this town for forever, because we don't want 2030 to be like 1930 when this town fell into disrepair. Thank you so much for coming on a radically Colorado adventure to Central City. Remember to like and subscribe for way more Colorado history and Colorado fun. And also remember, support Central City. This place is a place that deserves to live on through time.